I will veto and return to the Speaker Chapter 72, House File 844, a bill related to education finance, as soon as I receive it later today. The bill's additional investment of $400 million for E-12 education is insufficient given the state's large surplus. It's astonishing that with a $1.9 billion projected surplus and still more than $1 billion left on the bottom line for future tax cuts, there will not be more invested in our schools this year. And it is incomprehensible that the state tax cuts for millionaires and property tax relief for large corporations are higher priorities for the House Republican Caucus than investing adequately in our students and young children. The bill admits the following additional funding, which the Lieutenant Governor and I specified in our May 15th email to Speaker Daudt and Senator Bach, a copy of which I believe has been provided to you. The bill that was passed by the bodies yesterday provided no funding for eliminating the waiting list of 2,500 low-income children for Head Start, no funding for the North Side Yeshiva Zone and the St. Paul Promise neighborhood, no funding for the Bureau of Indian Education Schools, and only meager funding for American Indian students, no funding for special education, no funding for English learning programs, no funding for free breakfast for pre-kindergarten and first graders, no funding for regional centers, which help our most struggling schools to improve. Also unacceptable is the absence of any version of voluntary universal pre-kindergarten to help 47,000 four-year-olds, which has been my #1 priority in this session. Despite our willingness to move from full-day to half-day pre-kindergarten, and despite our urging that we take a comprehensive approach to educating young children, the bill neglects the opportunity to make transformational changes for our four-year-olds. Throughout this session, we have heard passionate rhetoric from Republican members about the urgent need to close the achievement gap. This bill belies that rhetoric and instead chooses to shortchange our youngest students for future tax cuts. Therefore, I will veto this bill when it reaches me. I also want to provide you with a little more background. Last week, from Monday morning until Friday afternoon, Lieutenant Governor Smith, our commissioners, staff, and I met almost continuously with House Speaker Daudt, Senate Majority Leader Bach, and there are other caucus leaders and staff to try to resolve our vast differences in dollars, programs, and policies among all of the remaining legislation. Throughout those discussions, we said repeatedly that our top priority was an adequate E-12 education bill. Most recent attention has been given to that section which funded voluntary pre-kindergarten for four-year-olds. However, our proposal also provided additional funding for the Minneapolis North Side and St. Paul Promise neighborhoods, the BIE Indian schools, special education, English learning programs, free breakfast for children in pre-K through first grade, and the elimination of Head Start's waiting list for 2,500 low-income children. At 4 p.m. last Friday, Speaker Daudt and Senator Bach met privately. They returned 2 hours later with their deal on all the remaining budget targets, which they presented to us to approve. Their $400 million target for E-12 education was far below our last $700 million proposal. Although they professed to leave the allocation of their $400 million to the E-12 Conference Committee, it doesn't take a math genius to see that much of our proposal would be left out. In fact, additional funding for all of the programs I just mentioned were eliminated from the final conference report. Friday evening, the Lieutenant Governor and I emailed our counter proposal to the two leaders. In true compromise, we proposed a $550 million target, exactly the midpoint between their $400 million and our $700 million. We included, and once again insisted upon, $171 million for pre-K. That compromise was rejected, and the $400 million bill passed both bodies. Yesterday, the session's last day, the Lieutenant Governor and I offered 2 more compromises to the House Republicans. First, we offered to drop our objections to all the other inadequacies in the E-12 education bill and sign the other remaining bills which had so far been posted in order to obviate the need for a special session. In return, we asked again for the addition of $171 million for pre-K. The House Republicans rejected that offer. Late last evening, we offered again to meet halfway in funding between the House Republicans' $400 million and our $700 million, and we offered to drop our insistence on pre-K in return for an increase in the school aid formula to 2% in both years of the biennium, which had been in our $700 million proposal, funding for the Minneapolis and St. Paul Promise school neighborhoods, Head Start, BIE schools, and an additional $55 million for the existing school readiness program. The House Republican Executive Committee would agree to only $100 million in additional funding. We again offered to meet them halfway at $125 million, again dropping our requirement for pre-K, and they again rejected that offer. Now, House Republicans have claimed that our pre-K proposal failed to muster the necessary legislative support. That's untrue. An overwhelming majority of House and Senate DFLers have indicated that they would have voted for its inclusion in the final bill. It is solely the House Republican Caucus, opposing it unanimously, who blocked its passage and denied 45,000 young children the chance for a better start to their educations. There were other vested interests who fought furiously behind the scenes to destroy our pre-K proposal. Remember that it would have been voluntary. No school or school district would have been required to offer pre-K. All parents who are happy with their child care services or other arrangements would be free not to participate. So what's the big fuss? Why deny other parents and their children that pre-K option? I'm told that some school superintendents and school boards who aren't ready or don't want to offer pre-K are afraid that the district's parents would opt to replace the district's children in other schools' pre-K programs and keep them there. And they would lose that per pupil aid funding for future years. Some child care providers don't want to lose their 4-year-olds and the incomes they provide. Some real and self-proclaimed early childhood experts don't want to subject their biases to the real-world test of parent choice to which they otherwise subscribe. So imagine all those adults who profess to care about kids conspiring to deny thousands of them the chance to get early starts on their educations, to close their achievement gaps, and to offer their working parents safe, affordable, and advanced learning environments for their children. You're darn right, the Lieutenant Governor and I are going to fight for them. I'm aware that the legacy bill was not passed by the Senate, and the bonding bill was not passed by the House. So, and I think both of those are essential. Please.
I just want to say that what you saw yesterday was a willingness to, the governor and I listened to what they said about what their concerns were around preschool. So we said, okay, we apparently share this goal of all making sure that every single 4-year-old in this state has the opportunity to have access to high-quality preschool. Let's talk about how we can do that. We're listening to you. And it's just so surprising to us that they, as we move towards them, that they just kept stepping away. I think they have a lot to learn about how to compromise and get stuff done around here.
Are you serious about the tent? Or
yeah, I'm serious. I mean, I was at an event last Saturday, the Hmong Lao Veterans Ceremony, and again, they had a tent. They had folding chairs in there, more than enough space to include the all the members and the press. You won't have to stand out in the rain. We made sure of that, and people were interested. I mean, there's space around it, and they could vote the way that good loudspeaker system. And they could vote the way I voted in the U.S. Senate, by a roll call vote. I would like to correct what I said just now. Some superintendents and some school boards have taken the positions I just described. Not all of them. And in fact, there's school districts, school boards throughout the state have already, on their own initiative, put pre-K programs into place.